Craving the perfect holiday snack? Check out Farmer Bill's Biltong. Think beef jerky, but better. No sugar, no preservatives, just pure animal protein goodness. Crafted from premium grass-fed beef or bison and air-dried to perfection, Farmer Bill's Biltong is nutrient-packed, energy-dense, and perfect for an on-the-go treat or a standout snack for your next party. My favorite is the original bison, but the other flavors like the original beef, smokehouse, and spicy chili had me second-guessing that choice more than once. Visit FarmerBillsProvisions.com to grab a 1-pound slab or a variety pack and use code BIZBIT10 for 10% off. Farmer Bill's Biltong, don't be the 2-liter guy at this year's Christmas party. Welcome to the Business Bitcoinization Show, the show dedicated to helping you enrich your life and grow your business with Bitcoin, the hardest money on planet Earth. I'm your host, Josh Friedman, and our guest today is Nate Castillo, who's the founder and CEO of Lucent Labs. Lucent Labs is a Bitcoin startup on a mission to democratize financial infrastructure with Bitcoin and to extend that to every organization. Now, if you've been a long-time listener to the Business Bitcoinization Show, Nate may sound familiar, and that's because we've had him on an early episode. Scroll on back towards the beginning of the podcast, and you can find the first interview with him. But they've continued to build at Lucent Labs, and I'm excited to share with you some of what they're doing. I'm looking forward to sharing this interview with you, but before that, we have this week's Bitcoin Meetup Spotlight, and this week it's the Grand Rapids Bitcoiners. The Grand Rapids Bitcoin Meetup, located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, is a Bitcoin-only group that's focused on Bitcoin education for all. They meet on the fourth Tuesday of the month and encourage newcomers and Bitcoin veterans alike. With monthly giveaways and a friendly atmosphere, the group's been growing quickly with regular attendees from all over the state. Their focus is to introduce as many West Michiganders as they can to the beauty that is Bitcoin, with a growing focus on orange-pilling local business owners. Topics vary from lifestyle to global economics and everything in between, taking into consideration how Bitcoin is impacting every facet of life. Locations can vary as the group continues to grow, so look them up on Twitter at GRBTC and on meetup.com by searching for Grand Rapids Bitcoin. Those links are in the show notes below, and if you're curious about finding a Bitcoin meetup in your area, I encourage you to download the Oshi app. Oshi has a feature that helps you to find the closest Bitcoin meetup to you. Now, we're going to get to our interview with Nate right after this. Business owners, unlock the benefits Bitcoin has to offer your business with the Bitcoin for Business Quick Start Guide. This 27-page guide highlights the 6 ways you can grow your business with Bitcoin. Check it out in the show notes. Nate, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Josh. Good to be here again.
So I like to start off every single interview with a few questions that help us to get to know you a little bit better and give us some insight for our own lives. These questions, we're switching them up a little bit this week because we've had you on the show before. So are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. First question. What is the part of the Bitcoin rabbit hole that you've been most interested in recently?
For me, Lightning has always been, top of mind. It's still very new, even though for those in the space that have been in the space for a bit, it seems like there hasn't been much, but there's actually been a lot going on within Lightning, from different companies announcing and just seeing all the different experimentation, the different use cases has been something I've been diving into, not only as an entrepreneur, but just looking to provide better value and service with Lightning as a whole to business.
So these next 3 questions are the same as the ones we've had before, but the answers may be a little bit different this time. Second question is, what's an insight or fact about Bitcoin that you wish that everyone understood?
Good question. I know last time I mentioned, its ability as a humanitarian tool. And I think, I want to just continue to echo that. Like the fact that there's 5 billion plus people out there that don't have access to financial infrastructure, is a big potential use case for Bitcoin. And now, obviously as a community, we're trying to realize that vision that Satoshi had.
Question number 3, what's the Bitcoin resource that you most recommend to other people?
Right now, it's been our Lucent blog, at least to our customers, and just trying to get good education content within that context. But just as a Bitcoiner, I just try to emphasize the community, right? So the Bitcoin GitHub, is obviously a great source, and all the companies building on Bitcoin have a GitHub. So if you want to get into the technical information, that's like the best place to start. and obviously some people who write in the space, publish things in an open source manner on GitHub as well. So whether it's like leading edge, prose or leading edge code, you can all find it in GitHub.
So beyond Bitcoin, what is a resource, tool, or an idea that's been helpful to you or your business recently?
I would say as of late, I've been doing a ton of reading. So having a Kindle and access to the Kindle app has been really helpful. And not only just, reading books, but reading a bunch of different samples of books. So for me, having to be a generalist and ramp up on different elements of running a business as well as technology, reading the samples, has been something I enjoyed, especially over the holidays, is just getting into a topic real quick and seeing if I want to dive in more. So definitely leveraging the Kindle more than usual lately.
So I'm curious here. You may not have an idea top of mind, but roll with me here for a second if you would.
Yep.
So either what is the best book you've read, or maybe most helpful book you've read recently, not necessarily a vanity title, but just something that's been very helpful for you, or the best sample that you'd recommend people go ahead and pull up on their phones right now and take a read through?
Yeah. So for me, most top of mind has been recruiting. And there's tons of books about recruiting, but I was really interested in a book called Recruiting by Ryan Breslow, who's another founder, in the space. He founded Bolt, and it started out as a Word doc that he had shared with, a bunch of other founders, and then he eventually just published it, right? So not a super long book, but there's, some nuggets in there on just creating a great recruiting process. What are the things to look for as an early stage, founder and entrepreneur in talent? Because it is a unique kind of, way to recruit versus an established company with, a team of recruiters or outsourced recruiting. Mm-hmm. So that's been, my latest read.
So now we usually have our final arbitrary but insightful question. Is it better to ask why or why not as a general life principle? You've already answered that. If people want to hear your answer, they can go back and look at that later. If you'd like to change your answer or whatever else, that's fine. But the main question I have for you right now is, this is a podcast for business owners, for founders. You are a founder yourself. And the question I want to hear from you today about is, what is the question that founders should be asking either themselves or other people around them?
I think this is, a lot, like, people can overcomplicate it, but I think am I having an impact? Mm. When I look at the schedule, when I look at what I'm doing for the day, when I look at what I'm focused on in this specific moment, I ask myself, am I having an impact, towards our mission? So if you can answer that and then quantify it in some way, that's going to allow you to, see the path towards enabling that mission you're chasing. I think that's a great question just to consistently ask yourself.
Great. Meet Linkster, your premier Bitcoin-focused advisor. Linkster caters to businesses, institutions, family offices, and high-net-worth individuals. They merge your unique financial goals and needs with Linkster's Bitcoin expertise to craft your own sustainable plan to preserve and grow the value of your hard-earned profits and retained earnings. At Linkster, it's not just advice, it's tailored execution. Connect directly with the founder by visiting linkster.com. That's LYNCSTER.com. Linkster. Secure your future with Bitcoin. Today's episode of Business Bitcoinization is proudly brought to you by Velis Commerce, where the future of business technology meets Bitcoin. As we journey through the era of Bitcoin and its transformational impact on businesses, there's one name that stands out: Velis Commerce. Whether you're looking to build a cutting-edge website, a seamless mobile app, or custom software, Velis is your go-to team. They've been diving deep into the world of Bitcoin since 2014, making them one of the most experienced groups for integrating Bitcoin and Lightning payments into a variety of digital platforms. But here's what truly sets them apart. Velis Commerce doesn't just build. They bring a wealth of knowledge to ensure your project's success from day one. Their team understands the nuances of Bitcoin, ensuring that your business stays ahead of the curve. And for all business Bitcoinization listeners out there, Velis Commerce is offering a free consultation to kickstart your project the right way. So if you're ready to future-proof your business in the coming age of hyper-Bitcoinization, head over to veliscommerce.com or reach out on Twitter at Velis Commerce. Let's make sure your business thrives in the Bitcoin era. Well, Nate, we're here today to talk about your work with Lucent Labs. We had a conversation really early on. You were just getting things off the ground. We talked about Bitcoin operations, aka BitOps. So maybe you can catch us up on what things have been like for Lucent Labs over the last few months. And we're going to eventually be getting into some of the new projects you guys are working on as well. But maybe if you could just catch us up on what Lucent Labs has been up to over the last few months.
Yeah, so there's been a lot going on since we last talked, Josh. So I'm glad we're able to catch up. But BitOps is a Bitcoin operations framework that we created a while ago in the effort to help businesses as well as enterprises onboard a Bitcoin strategy. And so what we've been doing a lot over the last several months has been talking to customers, to be completely honest. We ran a successful proof of concept with a version 0 of our product, and we had some successful outcomes, as well as taking those learnings and filling in some of the gaps and making things a little bit more automated for customers. So lots of work went into that. We've also been recruiting the founding team and still doing that. So we're opening it up to a couple more roles as we continue to expand our products. But we've been really seeing a lot of interesting use cases coming out of companies, specifically international companies, leveraging Bitcoin in some really painful areas, right, where legacy finance or TradFi has not been able to shore the gaps, or they've created a lot of friction with a lot of middlemen, or just like a complete lack of infrastructure in certain areas. So it's been a busy several months. Glad to have some time to spend here with you and get you caught up, as well as some people that are interested. So that's what we've been up to as of late.
Great. And maybe if you could also just catch people up on what they should be thinking about when it comes to Bitcoin operations, like maybe a couple nuggets, especially as you've been having conversations over these last few months. What are some things that business owners who are listening to this podcast right now should first be thinking about when it comes to BitOps and their business?
Yeah, so just to be crystal clear, Bitcoin operations is a operating model, right, to leverage some sort of operating standard so that people can maximize the amount of value that they're getting from their Bitcoin strategy. And the thing about value is it's somewhat subjective. And so as a Bitcoin operator, you need to not only have a good head on your shoulders about the Bitcoin ecosystem and all the technologies within that ecosystem, but you need to have the business savvy to understand the unique unit economics to your business and how to craft solutions and align them to enable value. And that could vary dependently or completely by what stage company. Some of these, some might be a startup, some might be an enterprise, and there's different things they're looking to attain. So Bitcoin operations is a framework that allows you to align in a really easy way, and you do that in 3 ways. There's 3 stages, and I kind of think of it as a flywheel. The first being enabling great education content and infrastructure, right? So recognizing that there is a ramp period that people who may not know Bitcoin or understand it, but there's a ramp period and that they need to know certain things about its economic properties, its unique monetary profile, and why it's the number one asset in a digital asset category. And you can't expect everyone to spend 1,000 hours on Bitcoin, Twitter, and YouTube to understand that. So the Bitcoin operator, the champion within the organization, needs to have some tailored content to help ramp up their management team, as well as communicate why the organization can do that. And then you need to enable the infrastructure, right? And so that is knowing what providers to use for Lightning nodes, how to do it yourself, as well as the different projects that exist out there with Bitcoin nodes, as well as the Bitcoin Pay server. There's tons of different open source software available for people to leverage. And, that takes some time. So being able to do that relatively quickly is important in enabling that. And the second thing is, then operating, right? And creating those processes, creating those workflows that are inherent in your business. So it's not causing disruption, right? Every business has a certain operation cadence that they like to run. And so being able to fit the technology within that operating cadence, creating as low friction as possible, is really, really important. And that takes, kind of a gentle touch, right? And then the last is being able to look at this technology and optimize it, right? For those certain unit economics that we're talking about, right? So being able to look at, a variety of metrics, not only revenue, but how are we, managing costs? How are we, managing liquidity if we're running, a lightning payments strategy? And how are we managing our custodial risk, right? Depending on how you derive value or what is valuable to your organization in that context, like you need to be able to optimize that. And that could be anywhere from improved economics or improved security. So to wrap up, enable, operate, optimize is what Bitcoin operations, is focused on. And we'll have more resources working on, publishing some of these things on GitHub as well. But the whole impetus is to create some standards around businesses operating so that they can do it in a safe, secure, and self-sovereign way.
So you mentioned having someone in the business who can champion the Bitcoin education, maybe even the Bitcoin conversation and some of the tutelage along the way of all that Bitcoin might include for the company. Would you recommend that being the business owner? Would that be optimal, or is it just good to have someone within the organization? Would you consider hiring for that? How should business owners who like this idea think about that person in their business and how to make sure they have a solid person in place?
Yeah, so there's, as Bitcoiners, we know there's a variety of different skill sets, that are required. People like to engage philosophically, people like to engage with the economic properties as well as the technical stack, right? And so I would first say there's no specific persona. It's great to have a business owner or leader who, wants to engage in Bitcoin. That's fantastic. But it doesn't always have to be. We see a variety of different personas. It could be someone who's like a chief revenue officer trying to recognize revenue in a deal that they're doing overseas in Argentina or India, and the central bank won't let them realize revenue here in the States, or do some currency exchange. So they have to have some path, and luckily with Bitcoin they have a path to kind of circumvent some of those things and still recognize revenue here and have that opportunity in a low fee, internet native way. And so, or you could look at it from a treasury asset perspective, right? And that's where a treasury team, a treasury operations team, where they're worried about cash flow management and having things super liquid, and they could leverage Bitcoin's liquidity to move working capital around to be able to not only buy new, property in an international context, but post collateral and manage cash flow that way. So there's a lot of different ways to leverage it, and different personas leverage it differently. As an engineering team would develop, an integration with their e-commerce server, or look to spin up Bitcoin incentives within an application or a gaming application, right? So there's a wide variety of contexts. That's why it's important to have a core set of infrastructure, and that's kind of what we're focused on, enabling and building at Lucent Labs.
So I know you have a couple new projects that are in beta right now that we can talk about. And before we get to those, is there anything else that is worth spending a little bit of time on to kind of catch people up, or do you really want to go to the next two, which would be a Bolt Node and Bitcoin Cash? What's the best direction here from your perspective as the founder who's been in the trenches over these last 4 or 5 months?
Yeah, I would say, we do have something we've been offering, to the community. If you need any help or you're interested in a Bitcoin strategy for your business, we do have BitOps consultations that we leverage, where we want to work one-on-one with you. We want to tailor this operating framework and spend time growing the ecosystem. So feel free to leverage that, and then we can kind of brief you a little bit more in depth on some of these other projects that we're working on.
So with that being the case, let's talk about these next two projects. The first one that you mentioned before our conversation was Bolt Node. So could you catch us up on what Bolt Node is? And then after that, we'll move to Bitcoin Cash, which is for listeners who might be tempted to turn off the podcast right now. It's not CASH, it's CACHE.
Yeah, thanks for making that clear. So Bolt Node is a Bitcoin and Lightning infrastructure product that we're bringing to market. Like I said, we're going into a beta release, and we have a sign up workflow for people that are interested in getting in that beta. But we want to make provisioning this infrastructure really, really easy to enable some of these workflows I mentioned previously, right? So in a BitOps, Bitcoin operating, context and leveraging our frameworks, we want to enable those frameworks and those workflows to create a templated approach to help automate some of the resource provisioning that goes into this, right? And so Bolt Node is meant to be somewhat infrastructure neutral, meaning you could spin it up as an open source on your own infrastructure. You could, pay us to, manage it for you. We don't care. We just want to enable you with this technology in a non-custodial way, so that you can start accepting payments, issuing payments to your vendors, as well as your business partners, and leverage the benefits of running your own node. And so that's where Bolt Node fits in. We want to make that process, like I said, really, really good user experience. And so for those interested, come on in. And then we have Bitcoin Cash, right, which is instead of saying, here's your, hardware wallet, we want to create an air gap solution for a business. And it's a unique use case. Like, you can't expect like an individual to have the same needs and requirements, as a business when they're trying to take a self-sovereign approach to Bitcoin custody, right? So the whole, element of Cash is to enable some treasury infrastructure that they could deploy in a self-managed way, so we can allow businesses to leverage technologies like multi-sig and some Merkle tree-based, proof of reserve, some things that are, relatively popular, but that will be valuable in their context, enabling self-custody. And the whole goal of that is to kind of create a user experience where it's a no-brainer for them to take their UTXOs and their private keys off of exchanges. And we want to enable them. I think there's an assumption, with folks like MicroStrategy and some others, that have, were early adopters in treasury strategy of Bitcoin, but they could be enabled even more and leverage and hedge some of the custodial risk that exists, obviously, with, FTX and some of the scares we're hearing about Binance. Like, I would be scared if I was a business owner or a treasury manager, CFO, and I was exposed, to those platforms. And to be honest, some people had no choice because they did venture capital investments, FTX did, and required some of those companies to hold their assets on those exchanges. It would be nice to have the optionality to take self-custody, but there's some solutions that exist today that are open source that are great, but we think the user experience for business and having an enterprise wallet of sorts, and that's what we're calling Cash today. So those are the two core technologies. Like I said, we have a beta coming out, and we have way more up our sleeve that we're looking forward to announcing, but that's all we got for today.
Sure. And I imagine that we'll probably be having many more interviews as you're releasing new things in the future, because this is really the type of stuff that business owners who are interested in incorporating Bitcoin into their businesses need to be thinking about and hearing about. So was there anything else you wanted to add there? Because I have a couple of follow-up questions about both these two betas.
Yeah, I was just going to add around some of the Lucent Labs hosted products. While we're doing this beta, we are spinning up our LCP. That's the Lucent Labs cloud platform. So we will be offering, managed Bolt Node implementations. Bitcoin Cash will be self-managed for obvious reasons, but we are playing with different, collaborative custody models with that, but it's more based off of customer interest at this point. So that's the only, other product announcement, that we have. And then we have some openings on our team. So if you're interested in this mission, want to get involved and, join us in enabling and democratizing financial infrastructure with Bitcoin, like take a look at Bitcoiner jobs or reach out. We'd love to talk with you.
Great. So when it comes to Bolt Node here, we had a conversation probably a month or two ago about running nodes. So could you talk with us a little bit about, from your perspective, why it's important for business owners to be considering running a node for their business?
Yeah, I think it's always good to innovate, right? And keep up with, what's going on in certain spaces. I think those who are true founders, have this naturally and are curious. But in terms of deriving business value, from running a node, you're not going to get a lot today from, routing fees in terms of the economics today. But I think having the ability to get, the perspective of what this technology can do for you today, and then how you can extend it across other applications, if you're a technology company, could be valuable. There's also the element of having non-custodial or, self-sovereign ways of holding your own UTXOs, which is very valuable. And that's, deep in the Bitcoin ethos. And I think, a part of that journey is getting to this point where you can run your own node. And that's extremely valuable. And so there's lots of great Lightning service providers out there, as well as, platforms offering payment services, which are great. And we have plans to extend into some of those. But I think the infrastructure, the technology exists today. So kind of getting at that question of why not would you want to own a part of the network, as well as your part in validating what could be the next digital settlement network for the world, right? Mm-hmm. So being an early adopter in that would make a lot of sense, I think, from a lot of businesses' perspective. Mm-hmm. Not only from managing, your own payments in a self-sovereign way, but managing custodial risk, which is another thing, but, the pursuit of learning and innovating your own products and services on top of Lightning and Bitcoin. Yeah.
So then next we have Bitcoin Cash. Could you talk with us about how people should be thinking about taking custody of their Bitcoin? Maybe some things that you think the easiest setups, the smartest setups, just things that business owners have been doing that make a lot of sense that other business owners should be thinking about.
Yeah. So good question. There's some diversity here. Some, let's say if it's a smaller company that's managing their own hardware wallet with a single founder is very common. And, what we've seen there is, the whole mix of, Trezors and cold cards being leveraged for those use cases. And there's usually some blend. They're not necessarily taking, all of their, Bitcoin and putting it off chain and storing in cold storage. But, obviously with larger players that are storing large amount of capital, feel more comfortable having a custodian. Still see, unfortunately, a lot of, Coinbase within the space, because that's just like a big brand. But when you go internationally, it's Binance. So I think there's just not a lot of good options, from a custodial perspective. And there's people that need those off-ramps. And so there's an education gap about, taking that custody and leveraging something like multi-sig. What I found is most people are very intimidated, by that whole process, and rightly so. It's, not, fairly, super technical to the layman engineer, but to someone who, has no technical background, it can be really intimidating, and the potential cost could be significant, right? If they're trying to, move any significant amount of value. And so those are, some of the types of ways we've seen, custody handled. There's companies out there like Swan that do a great job in making it a really good experience. And I know they acquired Spectre too, which they could, deploy something, in a collaborative custody context. I know Unchained also has a great collaborative custody, solution that leverages multi-sig and some sure bets and managing disaster recovery for, with them as a custodian. But like I said, you're still kind of dependent on them. They still hold a key to some extent, so it's not full self-sovereignty. And then you have solutions like Casa, which do a great job for individuals and some business owners in allowing them to take custody. But there's some trade-offs there, and so we think there's a gap in terms of having an enterprise type of workflow where the reality is, if you look at a company, like people are constantly shifting and moving, especially now more than ever. People aren't, staying at companies. So if they have approval authority within your treasury policy, that's going to need to be updated. That needs to be done programmatically versus, constantly manually updated. That's a lot of work for an individual contributor that's a Bitcoin operator to, maintain, and that's really high cost. So we think there could be a workflow established there, making that process easier, because that the reality is that context constantly changes, and the use case changes with that. So that's kind of how I view custody and where cash comes in.
So I appreciate you sharing these two new services with us today. Maybe let people know who this is for. So like someone's been listening to this today and they're saying, there's a lot of stuff here for me to be thinking about. Is this for me or not? Could you share with people who this is best suited for as far as working with Lucent Labs and especially these two services we talked about today? Then let people know where they can go to find out more about you and the work that you're doing.
Yeah, so this is, I would say, or like kind of the market segments we're focused on is the mid-enterprise to, large enterprise. And these could be family-owned, businesses that have been really successful, or they could be, large multinationals, right? And so a lot of the pain points we're seeing now are companies trying to do international transactions in a way that's, clean. And through the peer-to-peer, payment model, leveraging, Bitcoin, the most secure blockchain that exists, there's value that can be added today there. Also, another growing theme is just, hey, millennials love Bitcoin and they love being paid in Bitcoin, or at least having the option. So you could appeal as an employer by at least appeal to that cohort. And I think millennials make up like 38% of the labor force in the U.S. too now. So we have a majority. I think if you're working for an employer that's not offering Bitcoin, at least, for a percentage of your pay, like they need to start doing that, sooner than later, or else, risk their competition getting ahead of them. So I just think this even though we're in a bear market, this train is, left the station. It's continuing forward. It's not, slowing down. And now is the time to still ride the early adoption wave and leverage the network effects.
Yeah,
and that's the opportunity we see.
Great. So where do people go? They're interested in working with Lucent Labs, maybe having a conversation with you, or just staying apprised as to what you guys are developing at Lucent Labs.
Go to our website, lucentlabs.co, and you can schedule directly with us there for a BitOps consultation, completely free, and that's a great way to get started to learn and interact with us. We're also on Twitter and LinkedIn at Lucent Labs with a Z at the end. And feel free to just reach out to me directly, Nate@lucentlabs.co.
Great. All right, Nate, thanks so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Josh.
Well, friends, it's a wrap. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Business Bitcoinization Show. If you want to reach out to either me or Nate, you can find our links down in the show notes. And if you know of a business owner who would like to incorporate Bitcoin into what they're doing, connect them with Lucent Labs. As always, keep building, keep growing, and until next time, keep living and leading well. If you're a regular listener of the podcast, thank you. If you want to take a further step in your support for the show, you can help us grow by listening on Fountain, a value for value podcast app on iOS or Android. If you hear something you like that you disagree with or anything else, you can share it by sending some sats and adding a comment with your thoughts. Some of you have already done this and I appreciate it. I'm going to begin reading your boosts on upcoming episodes, so if you have some insight or value to add, let the people know. Getting started with Fountain is easy. You can add Bitcoin to your Fountain wallet by using your fiat accounts or any Lightning wallet. And one of my favorite features is that once you're using the app, you can earn sats just by listening on Fountain. Check out the link in the show notes to get started with Fountain today.